and welcome back to Doomed, an Arkham Horror the Living card game playthrough with a focus on roleplay and storytelling. And to this, the third and final episode of Doomed for this campaign. We are, of course, helping Agnes Baker, the waitress slash sorcerer, through Return to the Night of the Zealot. Let's recap very briefly. Agnes and her small up-and-coming coven of witches, headed by one Olive McBride, managed to do quite well in terms of getting out of of Agnes's home. They were able to defeat a big beast, a ghoul priest, as it barged through the wall. They were able to burn down the home to prevent any of the ghouls beneath it from getting out. All in all, Agnes learned a lot about her powers, and things went quite well. Lita Chantler, the zealot in question in the home, told them about a conspiracy in Arkham. Some small group of people in the town of Arkham are members of or leaders of a cult to something. The ancient master of the ghouls that live beneath the city of Arkham. They're planning to do something at midnight in the woods. It wasn't clear what, so Agnes and this merry band of witches set off into the city in order to determine what that could be. It didn't go as planned, unfortunately. Agnes once again did have access to some of her powers, but not having Olive McBride at her side led to a few catastrophic failures. She was able to repel some fog and knock a certain cultist unconscious, but when monsters and some sort of hunting cult master showed up in a graveyard, she had to get away. She simply had to get away. She was unable to use her powers to defeat them or to escape them, so that was it for her. Lore-wise, 6 out of 6 cultists got away. We presume that they're headed to the woods at midnight, but it is not yet past midnight, which is a good thing, we assume. Agnes is ready to take on whatever she's going to find. So I say, we hop to it, and let's get doomed. After a frantic nighttime search throughout Arkham, you've tracked down and questioned several members of the cult. Your findings are disturbing. They claim to worship a being known as Umortoth, a monstrous entity from another realm. Now, I need to interrupt the introduction just to say, when it says you've tracked down and questioned several members of the cult, I think what that means is the one that was knocked unconscious in the graveyard, she yelled some questions at the masked hunter, but, it didn't answer. And the group of 3 cultists standing on the rooftop in the university, she was able to find one of them and ask him a few questions, but unfortunately, there wasn't too much to be discovered. You're able to confirm much of Lita's story. The cult is agitated over the destruction of a ghoul lair. However, a surprising detail also turns up. The one who invaded the lair and set this night's events in motion was none other than Lita Chantler herself. You're not sure why this important detail was omitted from Lita's story. Did she tell you only as much as was necessary to draw you into her conflict? But in another light, she seems to be fighting to protect the city of Arkham from a terrible menace. The final piece of the puzzle was found written in a journal possessed by one of the cultists. It must be the little young man we found in the graveyard. It describes a dark ritual to be performed deep within the woods south of Arkham this very night. According to the journal, the ritual's completion will open a gate and bring forth the cult's dark master into this world. If the cult is not stopped, Lita warns, there is a possibility that Umordoth's revenge will consume all in its path. Frightened, but determined to stop the ritual, you head into the woods. We've already set up the scenario, so we've put 4 woods locations into play at random. I don't know what they are. We've included 1 random encounter set of monsters in the deck. We have placed 3 Doom on the first agenda, which is really bad. We've added a Elder Thing token to the Chaos bag, which is also really bad. And that's what we've done. Before we read the agenda and the act, we'll read them first and then we'll draw our opening hand. But I think it's worth pointing out here that Agnes trusts Olive and the members of the Coven. She doesn't necessarily trust Lita. She did essentially sacrifice Lita in the graveyard. But Lita's fine. They can, it was a temporary freezing. She got away, clearly. But she's not sure she trusts Lita. It would seem that Lita Chandler is fighting against these forces of darkness, of evil, that live beneath the city of Arkham, that just want to consume flesh or whatever. But perhaps the cult is keeping them in check. Although it would seem that now the cult is attempting to summon this thing from beyond the veil of our reality. We're not sure what exactly. So, let's have a quick read of the agenda and the act, and then we'll go for it. We're starting on 3 out of 4 dooms, so already this agenda is not going to last very long. From interrogating members of the conspiracy within Arkham, you have learned that they are performing a rite of vengeance in response to the destruction of one of their master's lairs. By Lita, let's not forget. And now us, it's a different... Anyway. You've entered the woods outside Arkham to try to stop them. The woods seem unnaturally cold and filled with a deathly silence. Act 1A. Investigating the trail. The evidence you've gathered has led you to the woods south of Arkham, where you believe a ritual to summon a being known as Umordoth is about to take place. Steeling your resolve, you set forth deeper into the woods, hoping to find the site of this ritual. We're looking for clues in the woods to find the ritual site. If we can find it quickly enough, we may be able to disrupt the ritual, I assume. Or Agnes is absolutely ready to take on any and all comers. Agnes Baker, our waitress/sorcerer, is here. She's got her 1 mental trauma, she's got her 5 resources, and she's ready. She's going to draw her opening hand. Olive, Ward, Forbidden Knowledge, Lita, and Guts. This is an absolutely excellent opening hand. No spells. None of the spells that we need. But I really don't want to toss back Lita, or I do actually want to toss back Lita, don't I? Agnes is thinking about how we are going to kind of do this. Olive is super useful. We need to keep Olive with us. Forbidden Knowledge allows us to take little bits and pieces of horror in order to hopefully sort of heal things. Word of Protection is really useful. So in fact, we're going to actually toss back the Ward and the Guts and Lita to draw 3 more. Flashlight, Premonition, and Wither. That's actually okay. Are we ready? It's time to get doomed. Hangman's Brook separates Uptown from the woods south of Arkham. Well, hang on, I have to parse that again. Hangman's Brook separates Uptown from the woods south of Arkham. Passing over the small bridge, you follow the main path deeper into the forest. Agnes isn't much of an outdoorsy type, but she knows that this is where she needs to be, and she has the mental fortitude to try to deal with it. The main path is connected to each woods location. Resign. So we can flee from the main path. There's nothing we can do to stop them. You flee from the woods, leaving Arkham to its grisly fate. Must it be a grisly fate? Perhaps it'll be a pleasant fate. You never know. Well, we're definitely going to take a moment to set up here before we venture off into the woods. I think we want to put down Olive. And, Agnes knew she was heading into the woods, so she took her flashlight. Oh, that might be less useful, actually, now that I think about it. And third, no more setup. Let's get to it. Agnes is going to head off into the woods. Growing up, you were always warned to stay out of the woods at night. Now you know why. This is Lakeside. After you reveal a chaos token from the chaos bag while investigating this location, reveal and resolve an additional chaos token once per test. This used to be a popular spot for fishing, but it doesn't look like anyone's fished here in years. So there's a clue here, and it only has 2 shroud. That's good. So there's no enemies. We just move on to a regular old upkeep. We draw Uncage the Soul. That's okay. However, because we started on 3 Doom, we immediately advance the agenda. Throughout the woods, a shrieking cry echoes. Is it a night gaunt? From somewhere deeper in the forest, a score of hideous voices answer the call, inhuman as the baying of hounds, and yet articulate, repeating a singular name. Umordoth, Umordoth, Umordoth. Shuffle the encounter discard pile into the encounter deck, and discard cards from the top until a monster enemy is discarded. Spawn it at the main path and place a Doom on it. A monster enemy, huh? Ancient Evils. Oh, good. Okay, let's get rid of all these. Oh, yeah. Monster? Nope. Monster? Yes. So, from, of course, the voices carry across the lake. Just as Agnes is thinking of heading back, she hears this chanting, this shrieking, and then the sound of crunching flesh from back where she came. Its position was kind of a crouch, and as one looked, one felt that at any moment it might drop its present prey and seek a juicier morsel. This is a 2/2/2, a ghoul. So we're going to have to do something about that. So that's fun. But it's not a hunter, which means it's not going to come after us. We're going to be able to prepare and go and get it. The ritual begins. Umordoth, Umordoth, Umordoth. The chanting builds in intensity, echoing into the cold air of the night. The sparse clouds in the sky coalesce above the Arkham woods, blotting out the faint light of the stars. Each enemy gets +1 fight and +1 evade. Well, I mean, so first and foremost, I should note, of course, because we discarded a bunch of treacheries, we probably now have a bunch of enemies left in the deck, which is like bad news. This Gravedigger is now a 3/2/3, which is also not great. However, Agnes doesn't have to worry about it. It's got something distracting it at the main path, something crunchy. She's here at Lakeside, and she's going to need to do something. And now we draw an encounter card as well. Hopefully not one of the remaining monsters that's in the deck. Oh, it's not. That's good, I guess. This is Umordoth's Wrath. A deathly chill engulfs you, attempting to suck your life force away. Test Will 5 for each point you fail by. Choose and discard a card from your hand, or take a damage and a horror. Somewhere between the shrieking and the crunching and everything that she's feeling, Agnes knows that there's something out there to get her. And the chill that's creeping across the lake is something that she is very worried about. She's going to rid herself, she's going to steady herself using the energy that she could have potentially used to uncage her own soul, and she's going to call upon Olive to help her resist. We're going to reveal 3 chaos tokens. Okay. I'm laughing because from a mechanical perspective, it's super unnecessary. But you never know. You really don't want to fail by 5. That would be really bad here. So instead, we're well past. Umordoth's Wrath dissipates around Agnes and Olive as they turn their attention back to the lake. They're hoping to find any sort of clues as to where the ritual site might be, but she also knows, of course, that back on the main path, there's something that she needs to deal with. So the first thing she's going to do is get her ability to wither down. Wither, this is a spell that she's been developing. It's maybe not quite as effective as the spell that she used on the Ghoul Priest in her home, but it's probably a sight more effective than the no spells she used in the city. By having prepared it, she's able to conjure it up and use it. So that's the first thing that she's going to do. The second thing, we're going to attempt to, I suppose, find out what the secrets of the lake are. She's going to turn on her flashlight and have a look. Now it also very specifically says reveal a chaos token, reveal and resolve an additional one. So we're going to reveal 2 because it tells me to. So we have to use both. It's an automatic fail because of the tentacle. Less good. And I suppose we should try again because we really need clues. Limit once per test. The tablet is a -3, so that's a -3 overall, but I'm still 0 versus 0 because the flashlight reveals everything there is to reveal at Lakeside. So we get the clue. Phew! Agnes and Olive, by the light of the flashlight, catch a glimpse of lights bobbing in the woods ahead, and they're going to use that to sort of try to figure, okay, it must be in that direction, but there's no additional information about where it might be. That was the investigation phase. In the enemy phase, this grave eater doesn't move, so that's good. Agnes still knows she's going to have to deal with it. Hey, it's the heirloom of Hyperborea. It's a good thing to have. And then we move into the mythos phase. 1 doom of 5, the ritual is beginning. Each enemy gets +1 fight, +1 evade. Okay. We're going to draw an encounter card. It's the Dreams of Rilia. Omen. Put it into play in your threat area. You get -1 willpower and -1 sanity. Test will 3. If you succeed, discard it. These dreams begin to overcome Agnes's mind. Now, is she going to use her ward of protection to just get rid of it? Save herself the trouble? I think so. I think she is. Even though that's a little... Well, no, it's fine. So she has to take a horror, which she's going to put on Olive. So, again, she conjures up that blast of light. Even though this isn't a creeping fog or an actual wave of cold or energy, it still dissipates the dreams that are coming up through her mind, so it just gets discarded, which is good. Agnes knows what she has to do. In order to get to other locations in the woods where she might be able to find more information, she's going to have to go back to the main path, and she's going to have to deal with that horrible creature. So the first thing she's going to do is move back. It's going to engage her. It's a 3/2/3. But she's going to try to fight it, isn't she? Yeah, +1 fight, +1. So it's got 3 fight. However, we can wither it using willpower. I'm going to call upon the power of Olive. Again, Agnes doesn't exactly know quite everything about her powers as of yet, but she is aware that this spell that she's been preparing should sap the energy from, well, any creature, really. And hopefully it will work here. So, second action, she's going to attempt to wither it away. Okay, great. So the skull is -1. This is 0, so we're 4 against 3, which is a success, and a skull was revealed, so it gets -1 fight, -1 evade. Excellent. So we're fighting it. The wither does work, so it sapped it a little bit of its energy, and she's going to, once again, attempt to fight it using this spell that's now, it's clearly working. The power is radiating out from Agnes as she attempts to slow and perhaps even disintegrate the Grave Eater. It now only has 2 fight. Excellent, 0. Okay, perfect. As the Grave Eater attempts to run towards her, it's slowed by the arcane power coming off of Agnes and Olive, and all of a sudden it simply withers into a husk, lying discarded on the road. Boom, done. Pretty effective investigation phase. In the upkeep phase, Olive is once again ready. Draw. Shriveling is the power that she used to fight the Ghoul Priest, of course, so if we can find a way to get that out, or at least keep it, it's going to be very useful. However, we're entering, once again, the Mythos phase. 2 out of 5 Doom. As the ritual begins, Agnes is going to keep trying to find those clues that she needs to find the ritual site. Let's draw an encounter card. It's Umordath's Hunger. We felt Umordath's Wrath, but it just kind of washed over us. Umordath's Hunger. Each investigator must discard a card at random. Each investigator who has no cards in his or her hand is killed. Heal the damage from each enemy in play. It prefers to feast on the rot of the deceased, but when the hunger is overpowering, the living will suffice. Having killed this grave eater, its husk of a corpse lies on the ground, and suddenly ethereal tentacles start to slither out from between the branches of the trees. It was moving to feast on the corpse of the grave eater, but the corpse of the grave eater has withered away to almost nothing. So this hunger, this embodiment of hunger, starts to reach for Agnes instead. Each player must discard a card at random, so we're going to discard a card at random. This is Agnes dodging out of the way. She no longer has her premonition, which is, you know, it is what it is. But we're not dead, so that's actually really good to know. It's good to know that Umordath, she gets a vision of Umordath's hunger. If she had been just a little bit slower, if she had just a fewer resources, she could have just been killed immediately. Let's continue. We have to continue to find clues. That's the most important thing. We don't have any ability really to look for them, but we're going to do our best. First action, we're going to move into this woods location, which is the corpse-ridden clearing. No, that's not good. The remains of half-eaten animal corpses litter this section of the woods, befouling the air with their stench. Each enemy at this location cannot take more than 1 damage from each attack performed against it. Good to know. While we're here, I suppose we should, again, try to get the clue off this location. So we're going to investigate. The flashlight is running desperately low, even after only having used it a couple of times. We're going to see if Olive here is able to bring us to victory. So we're revealing 3 tokens. We've reduced the shroud to 1. We have 2 investigate. So -1, and the skull is 0. Am I right? The flashlight is flickering. It's almost empty. And just by the last moment of the beam of light, it catches sight of a marking on a tree before it goes out. Agnes and Olive rush over to it and kind of using their hands in the very pale light of the moon, which is mostly covered by clouds, they're able to kind of make out what that symbol might be. And it almost feels like there's arrows on it pointing the direction. So if I'm not mistaken, this is a -1, so 1. Great job, everybody. We did it. Take the clue. And instead of moving back to the main path, which we need to do, we actually also need a way of investigating now, but no, we have a way of fighting, so let's actually just move back. Moving back to the main path. So that was the investigation phase. Again, there's no enemies because we withered that husk away. Returning to the path, she's very careful to avoid any stray ethereal tentacles, but there's nothing there. Draws her ritual candles. Well, we know how effective those were in the city. But they might be more effective in the forest, seeing as the flashlight is now out. We're up to 3 Doom of 5. The chanting is getting a little bit louder. The Mask of Umordath. If there are no cultists in play, search the encounter deck and discard pile for a cultist, draw it, attach the mask to it, shuffle the deck. Attached enemy gets +2 health. If it is not unique, it gains aloof. Okay. So, on the main path once more, about to head into the woods, a glint of light catches Agnes's eye, and she can see the disciple of the Devourer, a different one, obviously, than the one she knocked out, wearing a horrific, beastly mask. Let's have a look at it. Yeah. It's going to live at Arkham Woods, and we're going to put a doom on it against my better judgment. That glint of the mask is reminding, or it's letting Agnes know she may not realize it, but perhaps she and Olive are being surrounded, bit by bit, by cultists. Something is happening in the woods. She can only imagine what will be summoned if this ritual does take place. +2 health, and it's aloof. So it's aloof, which means we're probably not going to be able to fight it. Aloof, as a quick side note for those people who don't necessarily know the game very well, aloof is a keyword on enemies, which gives it the ability that it does not automatically engage you. So normally when you move into a location, if there's an enemy, it'll attack you right away. Aloof means it doesn't, which is good, except that it also then takes, in order to fight it or evade it, you need to engage it first. That costs an action. Then you have to do the fight or the evade. So aloof essentially keeps it distant from you, but it also makes it harder to deal with, more action intensive. This is over. Okay, well, that was the Mask of Mordoth. So again, that glint off the mask on the Disciple of the Devourer, it was where she just was, which means that they must be surrounding her. We've got 2 of the 3 clues that we need. We don't have any of the abilities that we're going to need to deal with the situation, though, unfortunately, so this just is what it is, I guess. We're gonna head deeper into the woods to try to find something more useful. Hey, it's the Quiet Glade. Heal a damage or horror. Limit once per turn. That's okay. I could heal horror for myself. But instead, we need to keep progressing. So instead, we're actually just going to head back. And then we're actually going to spend our third action to move down into this woods. This is the Wooden Bridge. After you reveal a Chaos token from the Chaos bag during an evasion attempt, reveal and resolve an additional Chaos token. Not even on a dare would you attempt to cross this rotted, rickety bridge. But the question is, would the cultists attempt it? Perhaps in and itself, it's already a clue for Agnes. This wooden bridge is almost rotted through. Clearly, it can't support the weight of multiple people walking over it. Okay, but that's the end of the turn, because we spent the whole turn just moving and looking. So, in the enemy phase, the aloof cultist does nothing but stare, draw a card, and take a resource. Agnes gets again this slight flash of the future. Or perhaps it's her logic, her paranoia, perhaps it is a vision of the future. She's not quite sure. But she realizes to get to the ritual site, wherever it exactly is, she'll probably need to get back to the main path. And if there are multiple cultists on the main path at any point, she's going to need a way to get by them. And this ethereal form, her ability to make herself air, is probably going to come in very handy at some point. If only to avoid the wrath of the Ancient Ones, whatever they are. We're back to the mythos phase. Oops, I should probably ready these things. And we're going to try to get that clue eventually. We're up to 4 doom of 5. Yeesh. Ancient evils. Dark forces stir against you. If you don't act quickly, a sinister plot will be fulfilled. Place a doom on the current agenda. It can cause it to advance. Agnes already used her energy dispelling a certain curse that was coming across the lake. So she can't help but feel the dread creeping towards her. Rough. The ancient evils The prophecies have been fulfilled. Agenda 2B, the will of Mordoth. A dark presence approaches, and you are assaulted by invisible pressures that bring you to your knees. Yeah, it's the feeling of doom we felt. A terrible force threatens to invade your mind and soul. Your throat clenches, and your eyes water as the sensation burns through you. Test Will 6. Each investigator who fails must search the collection for a random basic madness weakness and add it to their hand. Now, I haven't done that yet, because I haven't failed yet. So, haha, we might be able to actually do this. I think this is a good time. This is a good time to toss in the heirloom. We're testing our willpower, 5, against 6. Toss in the heirloom of Hyperborea, which gives me 2 more willpower, so I'm a 7 against 6. I want to keep the candles. I feel like that's going to be useful at some point. I don't really have the resources for them. We're not going to ask Olive, because Olive is also being assaulted, brought to her knees, and the horrible vibrations are just ringing through their heads. 7v6. Oh, that's so bad. Of course, we should have known the will. Is it the will of Umordoth? The will of Umordoth cannot be brooked by mind alone. This is a -5. If there's an ancient one in play, reveal another token. There isn't, but it's a -5. It's not happening. So, we're going to search the collection for a random basic madness weakness and add it to our hand. I'm going to jump now to the part where I've done that. All right, we're back. We've shuffled up the 10 random basic madness weaknesses. 10 random basic weaknesses that are all madness traded. We're going to draw one, and I believe it says add it to our hand. We have to reveal it. Paranoia. Discard all your resources. What was that noise? So, quite simply, the ringing fades out into a silence, and Agnes looks around. Her heirloom is gone. She doesn't remember having dropped it. And nothing seems to have changed, but she and Olive look at each other, and behind both of their eyes is suspicion. That force, that incredible power invaded them basically down to their souls, and yet it didn't injure them. They're both invaded by this feeling of paranoia. They don't know what it did, and therefore something must be wrong. The really bad part, of course, is that now we have no resources. Let's take a look at Agenda 3A. Vengeance awaits. The world begins to shift and change as the ritual nears its conclusion. The air grows chilly, and the entire forest is covered in a layer of rime. Frost. The trees bend unnaturally, and their shadows lengthen into weird shapes. When this agenda advances, so we have to do stuff. It's already very, very late in the scenario. It's not good. We need the clue off this location in order to continue to advance. I don't think we're going to be able to rush it down, but we'll do our best. Let's recap, shall we? Agnes, moving into this wooden bridge location, she was sort of thinking, okay, well, this actually gives me a pretty decent clue. They didn't go this way, but could they have gone there? And suddenly she's assaulted by this incredible force, this feeling of doom. Then suddenly a ringing, this awful sensation of lack of control. She falls to her knees. It blots out everything in her vision and in her mind. And when it fades, there's nothing there except her own paranoia. We're going to draw because we need cards. We need a way of dealing with whatever is coming. Okay, that's not bad. That's actually pretty useful. Her old leather coat, of course. Perhaps she should don it. Take a resource and don the leather coat. The coat was not the most fashionable choice, but it did feel warm and reassuring in its bulk. It has a couple of health, so it's going to help us soak any damage that might be coming our way. Again, enemies, nothing is going to happen because that one cultist is just still staring daggers at her. And in upkeep, we're going to draw some forbidden knowledge, which is okay. Take a resource, and we move back to the mythos phase. A doom goes on the agenda. We draw an encounter card. It's Rotting Remains. Oh, of course. For the first time somehow, after having gotten back on her feet, having shaken off this feeling of paranoia, having taken a moment to regroup, put on her coat, and think to herself, okay, Olive, you and I can do this. Suddenly under the bridge, she spots something, and it's not moving. A sickening display of gore causes you to retch. You're glad this wasn't you. Test Will 3, take a horror for each point you fail by. It's actually not too bad, frankly. We can just test it straight, 5d3. Yeah, that's fine. So, she sees this corpse. Was it an animal? Was it a human? Was it something else? But she's able to settle her stomach and just avoid it. It's funny though, because when looking back, it seems to have moved slightly. It's odd. Agnes is going to need a way of dealing with things as they come. So, first action is going to be to draw a card. A classic. It's haunted. Standing still and thinking, you know, I just need more time. I just need more time. Suddenly, memories of a past, again, is it hers or is it someone else's, invade her mind. You get -1 to each of your skills. She's going to have to spend the rest of her turn shaking it off. But now it's out of her deck, at least. And again, in the upkeep phase, she draws a card and gains a resource. Ah, her developed fearlessness could be useful. The clock ticks slowly on. More doom overcomes her. Not quite sure what that meant exactly. And draw an encounter card. It's the Mask of Umordoth. Attach to the farthest cultist enemy and place a doom on that enemy. Okay, well it's not great, but it is what it is. It doesn't say that you can only have one, so I guess suddenly this disciple has 2 masks on. No, let's not be silly about it. Suddenly there's another mask next to him, and another, and another, and another, and suddenly a sea of eyes staring out from beneath pale white bone is around her everywhere. Place a doom on that enemy. Oh, whoops, I never removed the doom. Uh-oh, I hope that didn't make a huge difference. We're going to place a doom now, and again, we're not going to go back and sort of see what I did wrong, but we're going to place a doom now and know that this counts towards our total. It gets another 2 health, so now this is a 5 health enemy, because it's actually not one, it's a series of disciples. Not great. But again, nothing that actually threatens our life, so that's good. We're going to be able to stand up to anything that comes our way pretty well, which is nice. How do we want to do this? We want to put down our forbidden knowledge. Yeah, we want to put down our candles. And we're going to immediately use some of our forbidden knowledge. Putting the horror on Olive. To then get ready ourselves for what is to come. Just to talk through the story of what just happened. Again, Agnes is standing still at this bridge, unable to go either forwards or backwards, thinking to herself, I just don't know how I'm going to be able to find and stop whatever they're trying to do. So again, she takes a moment to take a breath, to center herself, to let that feeling of haunted, that paranoia as well, kind of just fade away. She's going to get out her trusty ritual candles and drawing on some forbidden knowledge that she has. Again, it's those words of power that she had on her study desk. She's going to repeat them over and over to herself, and suddenly she feels herself growing in power. Upkeep. We draw the other shriveling and take a resource. Doom. So, there's 1 doom on the disciple. We go to 4 out of 5. So bad. Let me draw an encounter card. Things aren't looking good for Agnes. She has a lot of stuff, but is it enough stuff to deal with the overwhelming power of whatever is due to arrive? A Grave Eater. Again, this is similar to the Grave Eater from the main path, but this one emerges out from under the bridge. That thing she thought was, well, in fact it was, that carcass, that gory carcass. So actually this is okay. She knows she can deal with it. It doesn't have +1 fight, so we can fight it, and then we can, again, use some of that knowledge to try to kill it for free. Actually, we're going to do that to start, I think. Again, taking some of the resources that she knows, it almost overwhelms her mind with a feeling of helplessness, but that she is able, again, to channel into a blast of psychic energy, which hits the Grave Eater. And for her first action, she's going to attempt, because it was so effective before, to wither away this thing in front of her. She's a 5 willpower versus 2. And it's a cultist. What is a cultist? -2. Place a doom on the nearest enemy. So, although it doesn't, in hindsight, it doesn't actually matter too much, but I had to remind myself of how the rules work because, you know, this is a game after all, and we need to play by the rules as best we can in service of a great story. We resolve the effects of this token. It says place a doom on the nearest enemy, so I place one on the Grave Eater. It's the closest to me. However, then we check to see if we've passed or failed, which we pass, so we do a damage to the Grave Eater, which kills it, which also then immediately removes the doom. Like I said, it doesn't actually matter, which I will talk about in a moment as to why not, but we'll get there. We'll get there soon. We have no way of investigating, unfortunately, so we're just going to have to try to do our best here. Olive, pew! Do your stuff. Agnes is just desperately looking for answers. Wow, okay. So that actually worked out quite well. The skull is a +1, and this is a +2. So in fact, this is a huge success. She gets that last clue. And she's going to move back to the main path for her last action, assuming that it's the place that she needs to be in order to find a way to this ritual site. Potentially. In the enemy phase, again, those cultists just stand staring at her. She readies all of her knowledge, and she hopes to heck that something is going to be okay. Takes a lucky, that's good. Feeling lucky. And then we're going to go and see, I'm pretty sure we're in big trouble. Yeah, so we place a doom, and combined with the doom that's on all of the cultists, we advance the agenda. If the investigators are at Act 1, I could have advanced to Act 2, and perhaps I should have. This is one of those examples where I think I want to just live with the effects of the story, rather than attempt to play what I think is sort of the best scenario. I'm going to live with what I decided to do, which was not advance the act yet, because I have some memory of what happens when I advance the act, but we're going to just take our lumps, so to speak. If the investigators are Act 1, put the set-aside ritual site into play and spawn the set-aside Umordoth there. Here's the ritual site. Okay, cool. The large central chamber of a cold, dark cavern adorned with arcane markings and dimly lit by candlelight. And this is Umordoth. Okay, we're going to look at him in a sec here. That's it, I suppose. I'll look at it in a moment, but we're going to flip this first. Oh! Replace the current act and agenda deck with the Devourer below. So, bye-bye. Objective. If Umordoth is defeated. We have our task. It's probably not a very good one. This is the Vault of Earthly Demise, which is an otherworldly artifact of some kind that seems to have been infused with power by the cultists as they completed their ritual. It cannot leave play. It's attached to Umordoth, the Ancient One, which we'll look at in a moment. Plus X health per investigator and plus X fight. X is the number of resources on this card. Place 1 resource on this card for each act remaining in the act deck. There were 3 acts remaining, so it gets 3 resources, which, if I am not mistaken, gives Umordoth, let's look at it again, plus 3 health and plus 3 fight. Oh, I'm in so much trouble. Hunter, massive, plus 4 health per investigator. At the end of each investigator's turn, ready him. If you control Lita Chantler, it's only after her you throw Lita to a Mordoth or in order to spare your lives. Hits for 3 health and 3 horror. Because of the Vault of Earthly Demise, Mordoth actually has 13 health and 8 fight. I think that coffee is really going to help. I think that coffee is going to give me the solution required here. 13 health is probably impossible. If it's doing 3 and 3 every hit, then Agnes doesn't have a way to kind of cancel this Devourer below as it approaches. So her only real sort of thing that she can do is attempt to get away from it. And she does actually have the ability to get away from it, which is good. 8 fight. It's just not going to happen. Agnes has lots of tricks, but against the overwhelming might of the Devourer below, it just doesn't seem possible. She's going to, I guess, presumably retreat somewhere, and I don't know. She's going to try to look for something that can help her. That was the mythos advancing. So in fact, we still also need to take an encounter card. Click. Chill from below. Test will 3 for each point you fail by. Discard a card at random. So naturally, you know, this massive beast from another world is also accompanied by a slight chill. So let's see how the chill goes, shall we? Yes, I am actually. I'm a 7 against 3. -2, 5 against 3. I succeeded by 2 or more. So even in the face of this beast that she can see, feel, bearing down upon her, the deep chill coursing through the air doesn't bother Agnes. She's fearless, and she heals some of the tax that's on her mentally, so that at least is good. She probably can't survive against Mordoth, but she can certainly try. She can certainly try. Still think the best bet is going to be to try to get away and try to find Lita, because I can also resign. We can run away. Agnes has a few different options here. The only option, now that Mordoth has been summoned, the only option is to try to defeat it. But 8 fight and 13 health makes that essentially an impossibility. However, we do have a lot of different tools at our disposal to help that happen. Some knowledge, which might be able to damage it, possibly. We could wither it down, reduce some of its sap, some of its energy. We can try to shrivel it, blast it with energy. Again, at 8, it's just unlikely to happen. We also have the ability, potentially, to make ourselves ethereal, which would at least give us 1 turn. But Agnes is not going to leave. Agnes is going to try to find a way to defeat this thing. Again, survivors don't run, and mystics don't run. They need to know. It's not about tactical retreat. They need to know what this thing is, and she knows she needs to somehow deal with it. So she's going to rush to the Arkham Woods. First action. And then she's going to start drawing cards because she has a horrible feeling that she might be able to get... she has a horrible feeling she might know how to defeat it. Sixth Sense. That would have been useful ages ago. So that was the second action draw. Third action draw. It's another lucky. That's good. So that's the investigator phase. In the enemy phase, Umordoth smashes down to the main path and is starting to make its way towards Agnes. Keep phase. Draw a card. It's a premonition. Okay. Again, we have the ability to hopefully avoid being killed, so we're going to just do our best to try to find a way out of this situation. It's the mythos phase, so we're going to... Oh, we don't place doom anymore. There's no doom threshold. There's nothing to be done. The doom has arrived. There's no timer clicking up or clicking down towards our demise. It's here. This thing, whatever this thing is here. It sees us, and it is hungry. However, we do have to draw an encounter card. Oh, it's another chill from below. Sure. You know, I like a little chill from time to time. -1, sure. Again, Agnes can safely ignore that as she hunkers down and attempts to think of a way out of her situation. I'm not talking just for a moment because I'm getting all of my ducks in a row here. Agnes hunkers back against a tree. She can't really head further into the woods. The quiet glade is about to get less quiet. And she suddenly has a horrific thought. Something that was in fact suggested, by the card, but more importantly suggested in Agnes's mind. She has a flash. And again, it's all the pieces of the puzzle, but they're aligning for her just all of a sudden. Her connection with Hyperborea as a sorcerer, as a witch, has given her the ability to see bits and pieces of the future. One future, anyway. Sort of a Doctor Strange type situation. And as the creature known as Umordoth, the Devourer below, bears down upon her, she realizes what she has to do. It's not her they're after. It's not even the town they're after. It's simply after vengeance. It wants to consume the thing that tried to destroy it. She gets Lita and holds her close and says, "Trust me, we can do this." And we have the premonition out just in case we need to do that. In the enemy phase, this beast lumbers into the clearing, reaches out with tentacles that burn as they wrap themselves around Agnes and Lita. It does 3 damage and 3 horror. I'm just going to show all of the damage and the horror as I kind of put it out there. 2 of the horror goes on Lita, 1 of the damage goes on Lita, 2 of the damage goes on the leather coat, and 1 horror goes on Agnes, which allows her to do a damage to a Umordoth. Sweet! Lita screams out as the Devourer below bears down upon her. Agnes just manages to scramble away, watching as her leather coat is stripped from her and disintegrates. Again, she's able to redirect some of the energy into a blast, but it doesn't seem to slow the beast at all. And now it's here. In upkeep, we draw Olive McBride, sure. My god, Olive, is that you again? Again, we don't place a doom, but we will draw an encounter card, which hopefully just doesn't kill us straight up. That would be bad. It's a Disciple of the Devourer. Place a clue on its location and place a doom on it, sure. So again, as Agnes watches the masks from the other cultists start to get closer and closer to the quiet glade, they believe they are safe from Umordoth, so they're not concerned about what's going to happen to them. Agnes takes a deep breath and focuses all of her power. She told Lita that she had a plan, and she does. It just might not be the plan that Lita wants to see. Evade, add your willpower to your evasion if you succeed, which we definitely do because of the premonition. We have become ethereal. It fires this time. And suddenly Agnes's body vanishes into a mist almost that looks like her, but is non-corporeal. Disengage with each other enemy engaged with you, and for the remainder of the round, you're ethereal. Enemies cannot engage or be engaged, and you cannot attack or deal damage. But Agnes doesn't want to attack or deal damage. Agnes saw this coming, and she knows what has to be done. It's only after her. You throw Lita to a Mordoth in order to spare your lives. Hup! Whoops. Hup. The injured and screaming Lita Chandler, as Agnes becomes ethereal, just before she pushes Lita forward. Lita, of course, tries to turn around and grab onto Agnes, but her hand just passes right through her. She's become ethereal to save herself from a Mordoth and to prevent Lita from being able to escape. Just horrible. Let's read Resolution 3, shall we? In the face of this horror, you don't believe there's anything you can do to stop it. You have but one hope if you are to survive. You turn on Lita and throw her at the terrible monstrosity, watching it in dread as its swirling void-like mass consumes her. She cries out in torment as the life is sucked from her body. "O Mordoth! O Mordoth!" the cultists chant. Lita Chandler vanishes without a trace. For a moment you fear that the creature will now turn on you, but you hear one of the cultists say, "O Mordoth is a just god, who claims only the guilty and the dead. Go, and you shall be spared." The swirling mass vanishes, and warmth and light return to the woods. The cultists slink away, leaving you alive. Lita's last moments are forever etched upon your memory. In your campaign log, record that Agnes sacrificed Lita Chandler to a Mordoth. Suffered 2 physical trauma and 2 mental trauma, as the mere sight of a Mordoth has taken its toll on her mind and body. The guilt over sacrificing Lita forever haunts your memory. Each investigator must search the collection for a random madness weakness and add it to the deck. Each investigator earns victory X. None, I'm pretty sure. The investigators have survived, but their actions weigh heavily on their consciences. So, just for the fun of it, we're going to note that because of her time in the woods, Agnes has emerged stronger. She now knows more about her own power and her own ability to use magic at her disposal, but that part of her that is a survivor survived. It did what it had to do. She now has 2 physical and 2 mental trauma, 2 mental and 3 physical trauma, which would be terrible. Because of Umordoth's will, we added paranoia to our deck, and we're also going to add hypochondria. This is just also horrible. Something about the guilt of sacrificing Lita means that Agnes will never quite be the same. She's always looking behind her. She's always believing that something is wrong with her. And that's where our story ends. She and the Coven of Witches survived. But at what cost, really, we have to ask ourselves. And that concludes Return to the Devourer Below, and, more specifically, Return to the Night of the Zealot. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this, the final episode of this first campaign of Doomed, a playthrough of the Arkham Horror card game with a focus on storytelling and roleplay. I hope people enjoyed. I haven't been soliciting this in every video, but I will solicit it now. If you have thoughts, feelings, or just want to say that I played badly or whatever, you can leave your comments down below in the comment section. I will, of course, be doing more of these because I'm having a blast. Also, join me, twitch.tv/BiffTheBoss, where I do not play Arkham Horror, but I do play all sorts of games in character, similarly to this, I would say. Thank you all so much for joining me on Doomed. It's been a blast. And as always, take care of yourselves out there, folks. It's important to be safe. We're having fun because it's a game, but be well. Don't forget to hydrate. And also, don't forget that aren't we all doomed? I'm just kidding. Thanks so much for joining me.